Tonight on The ReidOut.
Are you really saying you would throw out the ballots of 740,000 and three-quarters of a million Arizonans? I mean, those were
740,000 ballots violated chain of custody requirements in Maricopa County.
I mean, first of all, it's not true. I mean, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors put out a 98-page report that went through these allegations.
That is a fact. Check your facts.
Not true. Not remotely true. But the threat to democracy is real. And with 2 weeks until Election Day, we are already witnessing how that threat is becoming a reality. Also tonight, you'd think Justice Clarence Thomas would stay out of any cases involving Trump's big lie, given that he's Ginny's husband. But he's gotten involved again to help out one of Trump's Washington cronies. And Republicans love to point the finger of blame about inflation. But do they even have a plan? What would it mean for the U.S. economy if their plan was implemented? Plus, if you want to be the Republican nominee for president, apparently you got to break a few laws. New reporting tonight on the migrant flights organized by Ron DeSantis. We begin tonight with the open, unabashed rise of anti-Semitism. Over the weekend, a hate group hung a banner over a busy Los Angeles freeway in support of Kanye West, who as of this evening has lost his agent and his lawyer after a bizarre descent into anti-Semitic hate on social media, including declaring, quote, DEFCON 3 against Jewish people. The group's sign said, Kanye is right about the Jews. And the group added to the hate flourish by flashing the one-armed Nazi salute. And that would be bad enough if this was just one isolated incident. But of course, it's not. In Pennsylvania, extremism and anti-Semitism continue to dominate the governor's race, where Doug Mastriano, the Republican nominee, is running against the state's Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, who is Jewish. A senior advisor to Mastriano recently tweeted that Shapiro is, quote, at best a secular Jew, a bizarre comment reeking of anti-Semitic overtones. Mastriano himself has lashed out against his Democratic rival for going to Jewish day schools and sending his kids to one. It all echoes Donald Trump's long history with anti-Semitic tropes, something that we saw emerge again earlier this month, when he posted on his bootleg Twitter variant that Jews in the United States must get their act together and show more appreciation for the state of Israel before it's too late. Then there's Arizona, where election-denying candidate Mark Finchem routinely traffics in anti-Semitic tropes, including the now familiar right-wing tack of invoking the name of billionaire George Soros, including in a tweet over the weekend defending the actions of poll watchers in Arizona. With just 15 days until the midterms, we are seeing in real time that Arizona is a microcosm for election lies, spawning voter suppression and intimidation. The Maricopa County Elections Department confirmed that 2 armed individuals in tactical gear and masks stood watch over a drop box in Mesa, Arizona over the weekend. Yeah, not intimidating at all. Officials are warning about the prospect of things getting even worse, saying that they're fielding voter intimidation complaints, which as far as the MAGA crowd is concerned, is very much the point. Arizona officials are warning of more uninformed vigilantes and numerous reports of a growing army of self-proclaimed election observers recruited by right-wing groups promoting the former president's big lie. They're abetted by election deniers like Republican candidate for governor Kari Lake, who, despite Arizona's 2020 election being the most scrutinized election in the country, repeated unfounded election lies while again refusing to explicitly commit to accepting the results of this year's election.
Why it is that you have not said, or maybe you'll do it now, you have not said that you will accept the certified results of this election even if you lose this election?
I will accept the results of this election if we have a fair, honest, and transparent election. Absolutely, 100%.
So if you were to lose and you're ahead, but if you were to lose and you went out and you had all your appeals, they went through.
As long as it's fair, honest, and transparent.
Lake also all but promised to do away with mail-in voting if elected. And in addition to being an election denier, the former local news anchor is a leading MAGA Republican warrior against the boogeyman of wokeism, as evidenced by another one of her threats on Sunday.
I'm not going to be taking marching orders from the NFL. I'm taking marching orders from the people of Arizona.
Apparently, the not actually all that progressive NFL is a problem for Lake. She doubled down on Twitter, daring the NFL to pull the 2023 Super Bowl from Glendale, Arizona, after she declares an invasion at the southern border, following some not unprecedented racist footsteps from an Arizona Republican. Republican Evan Meacham ran for governor in 1986 on a pledge to rescind the state holiday honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he did just that after being sworn in. In 1990, Arizona faced a proposal to add the Dr. King holiday back onto the calendar, days after a warning from the NFL about the fate of the 1993 Super Bowl set to be played in Phoenix. So how'd that go?
By Election Day, the measure to celebrate Martin Luther King Day statewide, though it had been leading in the polls, was defeated. The campaign against it led by former Governor Evan Meacham. And NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue announced he would make good his threat and recommend the Super Bowl go elsewhere.
I felt, and I know that it's shared by a lot of the owners, that there was a very negative and divisive message in that vote rejecting the holiday, and we didn't think it's appropriate to play the game in those circumstances.
Joining me now is Maria Teresa Kumar, President and CEO of Voto Latino, and an MSNBC contributor and political analyst Matthew Dowd, who was the chief strategist of the Bush-Cheney 2004 presidential campaign. Thank you both for being here. MTK, I do want to start with you because it feels to me like the biggest retrenchments led by MAGA Republicans have been in states that have actually progressed, right? Arizona used to be an anti-King holiday state. Then it was a John McCain conservative state. And now it's actually got two Democratic United States senators. It's seen as becoming a bit more sort of progressive. You're seeing Texas, which demographically is changing. There's lots culturally going on in places like Texas. Nevada, they're fighting really hard to pull that backwards. Georgia. And the things that these places have in common are lots of immigration, lots of brown people that are turning voting age who are U.S. born and they're able to vote. And that feels like that's triggering a lot of this backlash. What do you think?
That is exactly right. And that's one of the reasons why every single state that you mentioned in Voto Latino has been working in those states for the last decade, if not more. To give you an idea, in Arizona, we're expecting 80,000 young people to turn 18 by November's election. That is a state where Joe Biden won with less than 12,000 votes. And so when we talk about the vigilante that's happening, it's very much is about demographics. In Georgia, when you look at the African-American community, the Latino community, and the Asian community, all of a sudden you're talking about a voting bloc that is vastly different from what Georgia has historically been accustomed to, but that needs to adapt. And when we talk about what's happening right now with the voting booth and the access to it, every single American, Joy, should be absolutely angry that they're trying to change the rules in the middle of an election. That's why tonight, this is breaking news to you, Joy. Voto Latino, along with the Arizona Alliance for Retired Americans, has just filed a lawsuit against the Clean Elections USA. Those vigilante photos that you showed us, they're part of that cohort of individuals that are getting recruited by this extreme right-wing Clean Elections USA, who is claiming that they have to ensure that there are clean elections. But what they're doing is intimidating voters, disproportionately older voters and individual people of color. And so we can't stand, we can't sit by. This is what's happening right now in our democracy. And the more that we say that it's business as usual, then all of a sudden we're allowing individuals of the far right extreme take essence of our democracy in a way that we will not be able to pull back. It's almost like we're seeing this, really very much a fight for the soul of our nation, whether we're talking about anti-Semitism, or we're talking about anti-Blackness, where we're talking about whether a woman has agency over her body, or whether people talk about immigration reform under really the guise of hate. We really have to be able to push back and say, not on our watch.
Right. I mean, and Matthew, it does all go together, right? Because sort of the conspiracy theory that underlines fascism, and that's always been that communistic Jewish people have a conspiracy to bring in more black and brown people, and that those people are going to vote and they're going to overwhelm and replace white Christians. Like, this goes back to like the 50s and 60s, right? But now it does feel like it's accelerating. You think about a state like Georgia, where this is a woman, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who traffics in blatant anti-Semitism, QAnon conspiracies. She's now telling people that Donald Trump has said she'll be his running mate. I 100% believe it. And the thing is that somebody like Marjorie Greene to emerge at the same time that you have the first Jewish and you have an African-American United States senator in that state, it feels like those are not coincidental. What do you think?
Well, I don't think anything of this is coincidental. I mean, you mentioned the 50s and 60s. Obviously, what's happening today with the vigilantes harkens back to what was going on in the South with intimidations by sheriffs and deputy sheriffs, because as African Americans began to actually take their power and vote, they were then subject to all kinds of intimidation. But it goes further back. Every time there's an influx of immigrants or the face of America begins to change, you look at every period of history where that happened. In the early 1900s, in the 1800s, with whether it's Italians, Irish, Chinese, Japanese, Jews, every time that happens, there's a rise of this hate and there's a pushback against by the power structure in this. I think all of this is a sign, a reflection that Republicans and this white nationalist movement knows that America is a multicultural, diverse country. All of this, and they know without these things, they cannot win. And they're going to do this. This is an awful strategy in the short term. I mean, for us, all of us, it doesn't work in the long term because of the inexorable change of America. But in the short term, that's their only play. They know if a majority of people vote and go to the polls, they can't win. So their goal, like it has been throughout our history, to keep anybody that isn't a white Christian nationalist from holding power in this country.